Hello again. This is David Lasher from Keen 360, our no-code CRM leader. And this is session 7, I believe, of our bootcamp. And Kevin, let me just hand it over to you again, as usual. Please recap what we did yesterday and what we're going to be covering today. Thanks.
Yep. All right. So yesterday we looked at activities and emails, as well as a bit of telephony and making calls, how those pages are set up. And we particularly looked at how all three of those elements, calls, emails, and activities, or your calendar tasks and meetings, are all built on the same object activities, but they have rules defined in the page designer by a type so that you can have different pages showing depending on which type of record you're looking at. We also looked at queues that you would use for cases and how you can build a queue of a different kind of object to present to a user in a defined order so that they just pick the next one from the list, do what needs to be done on it, and kind of process their queue. And then we also looked a little bit at calendars. So today we're going to be looking at the new business rule wizard that's in the Freedom UI, how you build rules for filtering fields, for you can show and hide elements, make fields required, not required, elements like that. And through looking at the business rule designer, we're also going to look at the power of lookups and how for what at a base level is a drop down on a page, you can have different metadata stored on the lookup that maybe isn't directly visible to your regular user that can provide all sorts of different information, like say a default starting stage for a dynamic case stored on a case category. So let's get my screen share going. All right, and so you should be able to see Creatio. Now, I'm currently in the account section. And the first thing I want to do is look at how you can get to this business rule designer, so how you can build your business rules. I think we've kind of skipped by it a little bit. I think we've seen it. I think I've flashed it a little bit, but I wanted to take the time to actually open it up and take a look at some of the rules in it. And some of the new possibilities in it, and also talk about where I think there's some limitations that aren't breaking, but just so that you're aware that they're there. So I'm going to open my edit page designer. And it's going to take a second, it'll come up, but I get my account page. And so there's two ways you can get to the business rules. One, you can click on a field. And if you remember from when we looked at the wizard, you can show a default setting of if a field is visible or invisible on page first load. And then there's a setup conditions button here that this will take you to the business rule designer. Also, you can get it up here with this gear. You'll notice the icon's the same. To just go to the overall business rules. So when you do that, the new business rule designer will show up. And the first thing I want to point out is that there are two groups on this left side of business rules. There's page business rules, and then what's listed here as account business rules are actually object level. So it says account because we're in accounts, but if I was in contact, it'd say contact, and so on. And so the difference between the two is that a page business rule has conditional rules that are applied at a page level. So like, is a field required? Is an element visible? Those rules will get applied at that like this page that you're choosing, the account edit page. But for example, they wouldn't apply at the account list page because it's only for that given page that you're editing. The account business rules instead are actually at an object level, the account object, and will get applied regardless of which page you connect to accounts. So if you had 3 different account pages, or like how we looked at yesterday with 3 different pages built off of the activities object, the page business rule would, if you applied it on, say, the task page, it would only get applied to the task page. But if you apply a business rule at the activity object level, no matter which one of those 3 pages you used, the task page, email page, or the call page, the rule would still get applied. So this can be handy for some elements of a business process where you maybe bring up a reference to accounts and some fields from accounts, but never actually load the account page. And if you have just as a page rule for required fields of like primary contact here, say you made that required on just the account edit page, but that you pulled some pieces from accounts in a business process, but never loaded the full page, unless you manually went and did it yourself there on that process page, primary contact wouldn't be required there. But if you did it at the object level, it would actually persist through your edit page, your list page, your processes where you reference it. And then the other cool thing with the object level of how persistent is, it also will apply on the mobile app. So you can actually, where before mobile app business rules had some code limitations, like you had to actually have like a new schema defined, and then you had to write the code yourself. Account business rules, or object level business rules, in this case account business rules, will apply on the mobile app. So how do you set some of these up, and what can we do? There's a couple defined here already for accounts that if the primary contact field is filled in, it wants to show an element for the primary contact container, which this is this field over here, this box here that says Alexander Wilson, this little like preview of what the primary contact record is. That's what that business rule is controlling. So if I clear the lookup here, I might have just confused that page. I forgot about that visual bug we ran into, or that hiccup we had in like our very first call. So mistake on that one, but the element would disappear is what that business rule is describing. Okay, so back in the edit page. Sorry about that. But so let's just look at the structure for this rule, that it has if and then and a then. So it's like if the top is true, then do the bottom part. Primary contact is filled in, and then account created on is filled in, then show the primary contact container. So all of the business rules will follow that similar structure that is if, then, if this is true, do this other thing. And let me start defining one. So what can we do? So we can have if, we could do an attribute on the page. So we can say that like if type is filled in, then what do we want to do? One of the things I want to point out in this list of options for our actions, there are both sides of the coin on some of those decisions, where in the old designer, it was just a make field required. And then if you wanted it to be required in all situations but one, you had to kind of like work backwards on the rule a bit. In the new designer, you can actually just do that. I want to show the elements, therefore I'm going to pick show. But if say the element is hidden by default, I'd actually prefer to work from the hidden rule. So it'll include both sides of the coin: make field editable, make element read only, make required, make optional, so that you don't have to do any like really complicated if logic to do like everything but these 3 values kind of option. You can say that you can pick the option you want and then those 3 values. But so let me see the show elements. So if type's filled in, I want to show, and then the show versus hide is how you can control what part of the UI appears. And there's a little bit of complexity to this one, that is inputs are going to be fields. The chart is going to be one of your dashboards, like do I want to show or hide this bar graph? Component and layout elements is just it's going to take some practice on which one is which. Components being buttons or an element of like attachments, or there's a lot of buttons in here. Communication options, really one of those things that performs a singular function. You don't like put pieces in it, if that makes any sense. Let me just open the edit designer again so I'll point to the toolbox on the left side as I'm covering these. So well, that loads so component. A component is going to be one of the pieces. If you scroll down in your page toolbox, one of these that's listed components, your buttons, your lists, attachments, your dynamic case progress bar, the calendar. You connect them and they perform in different functions. Like the calendar, you connect a start and end date and it will display on the calendar, but you don't add new fields to it, is kind of my distinction. Whereas layout elements down here, like say an expansion area, if I drag this on to the page real quick, it's a way that I can group additional fields. So like I can put annual revenue and number of employees in the expansion panel. So it's a layout element rather than the calendar element, which if I drag it onto the page is just a calendar element. I don't then put also known as inside the calendar. Yeah. So that's kind of the distinction, that like these components will be singular pieces like feed or a chosen button, or a list of records going into a detail like a list of addresses. Whereas if I go back here to layout element, that's going to be your expansion panels and your flex containers and your tabs and things like that. Looking at this as well, you can see that a lot of it is listed by the type of element, and then usually like the concatenated code name of the element. When I've been doing these, I have kind of taken to the habit of having the regular edit page open like this while I'm working from the business rule, so that I have a point of reference. Because you'll look at this, say like grid container underscore 8 WCF. It's a gibberish name. It's one of those I think gaps in the business rules that they picked the like code value for me to reference the element, and that value is no good to me. It doesn't mean anything. So I will usually keep my edit page open so I can click through to the pieces in here, and presumably if I'm doing business rules, I've already gone to the page first to know what I would like to add, but I use the existing page wizard to go down, and I'm looking for this element code here when it comes to me referencing bits. So like grid container GCX91, I think that's it. No, it's not it. It's a limitation for now. It's not really what I want it to be, but that's my workaround so that I can get what I need done with it. Yeah. But so you can pick the pieces that you want here. So then I can do I want to make the entire tab view shown if type is true. One of the things that you can use in the business rules setup that is a newer option that I really like is before many of these thens, you just pick one. So you'd be like, I want to show tabs, and maybe there's like 3 pieces you wanted to show for if type equal, say like type equals the lookup value of customer. Maybe you had 3 tabs that you wanted to show for if the type equals customer. You would have to do if type equals customer, show, let me change it to a tab. I want to do a layout element, and I want to show the sales tab. But then say you also wanted to show the service tab, you would have to add a new rule, define if again, and say type customer tab service. But here you can actually just go back in and say, okay, so I want to show tab sales. I also want to show layout element tab service. And just group all of the actions together. And then on top of that, if you wanted to do as well, other conditions, so like these tabs should show up and I want to make an element required, you can have multiple then results as well. So it'd be like, then I also want the if type equals customer on account, I want primary contact to be required. Then you can give the rule a name. So show type or show sales. Think of this as sales and service tabs if type equals customer. Just give it something that's going to be sensible for me to reference later. You can see it as saying I want to apply this rule to the page. So if I have a different account page, this rule won't apply. And then I can also toggle if I'm just creating this rule and I don't like, I'm just putting it together for now. I don't want it to become active use right now. And I can turn it on and off. Doing a rule on the object is similar setup. It'll say to the data object, and it'll say that I'm applying it to an account. I do my if, I can pick which fields for if a field's filled in. And then there's a couple differences in the then that I want to look at. So, if I go in the page rules, it's show hide, editable or read only, required, optional. At the object level, I actually can't do a page show hide because that's page agnostic. It's not gonna, the object doesn't care which page I'm working with. So there's no show hide set of tabs or a given lookup. It will still offer me editable or read only because it's giving me those options for make this field required everywhere, make this field required just on this page. Is it editable just on this page? Or should it be read only on every instance that it ever shows up? The difference that I can have at an object level, which is here so that I can ensure that this validation is applied in all cases, that I can build some filters. So I could apply a filter. And the way that this is going to work, it's filter a field on the object by another field on the object at once. So like if I want to filter city by the state that the city's in. And like when we work with details, Creatio is actually going to recognize that there is an existing connection in those lookups to do this kind of reference, and it will make the association for me. Setting this up is what we'll look at with the power, like what you can put on lookups. But the important part I want to show right now is just that you have to do what you want to filter by the field you want to filter it by, so that you have that kind of like, well, how am I supposed to know what I'm working with? Like what state is already applied on the account page. And then there's a hidden lookup value that determines what cities are connected to which states. I can also do a static filter. So I can do, say, category. And then the static filter is more like, I want to show just the ones that are active. So we've had in some cases that we did some values that were able to have like a flag that you could turn it on and off and say like, this is currently a valid selection choice, but we don't want to delete it because it might be archival data. And so you could do a manual filter or a static filter that's just is there a flag that's true that says it's active? And then set values is that you can set a field on the page. So say I want to set category. Yeah, equal to, and this is one of those limitation options that right now it's you pick from the lookup. I can't have a reference elsewhere in the set field value. I want to, like, this is a default field value, but I can't do conditional defaults, if that makes sense, with this rule. Yeah, I could just say that the category I want it to be B, and it's always going to be B, at least where my if is true, but I can't have like a direct connection to another field through this rule alone. But so those are the rules you can set up with business rules. And I do want to show how you can set up some of these connections. And then how you can view them as well. So let's go back to my main pages. And we'll use the addresses, I think, as a reference point, because what I want to do actually is we'll do a subtype. That's good to do. So right now accounts just have types. There's just competitor, like competitor, contractor, these values in here. But what if we want to do an account subtype? Going back into the page editor, the first thing I'm going to do is, in this case, the subtype we would want on the page, because we would want to do type and then a subtype underneath it. So I'm just going to add another look down, a lookup drop down, not a look down, or a I'm going to call it just subtype on the page, because user logic, I'm like, the value is how accounts references it here. And if I'm at this point, I'll be able to realize it's the account subtype. But then when I add a new lookup object to the database, this one I'm going to call account subtypes, because this is going to go into the lookup section. And trust me, you're going to want to give these unique names, because otherwise, if you go through and just do type on a bunch of different pages, you're going to go to the lookup section and you're going to get 6 entries of type, and you're not going to know which one is which. So I'm going to do account subtypes. I want this to be a drop-down list. Right now, I don't want to enable new values. We'll do that ourselves, but I don't want to expose it to the user. And I think that's good for now. So I'm going to save it. And when you make save, Creatio is going to make an object to store those drop-down values. And so once this is done, we'll have a type and we'll have a subtype. But at this point, they won't be connected to each other. They don't know the other exists. So if I tried to go to build a business rule to filter by them, I can't filter my subtypes by type, because a given subtype won't know which type it's supposed to reference. Yeah, data is not bound for contact. All right, just refresh to make sure it's here. Oh, let's save the calendar element. I forgot I did that. So there we go. I've got my type, and then I've got my subtypes, which as of right now have no data. So let's do this. First things first, we'll go to the studio, and then there's lookups. And I'm going to search by subtype. And then I'm going to open it. Because I made this lookup through the page wizard, it'll make an entry for subtypes there. If you make an object on your own in the hub that's not directly connected to anything and is not visible as a lookup, you can always do new lookup and pick which object you want to reference. Like, say I wanted to look at accounts, I can just pick in the object list account and go and make a new lookup. but we'll look at account subtypes. So say, let's just to start with, I want to do like some different kinds of customer that, I'm blanking, and sometimes it's really helpful for me to have those types in front of me. Let me get accounts up. What were our types? So we've got, say, customer, contractor, our company, partner, supplier. So maybe we want, like maybe we want a direct competitor. Subtype these really aren't all that great, but I'm just put some values in. Otherwise, we will be here all day as I try to come up with some options. Let's do 2 examples. And so I'll put some subtypes. And if I go back to my account, I should get rid of that calendar element. It's just making me scroll all the way down the page. Oh, what did they do? Confused it. And there's the one trouble with working with trials. They usually are, they get some of the versions a little bit more earlier than is released to production instances when all the bugs are really tamped down. So that sometimes the trials are a little funky. Yeah. Well, let me just get rid of that calendar element because that was very much confusing the page. All right, there we go. Big awkward calendar element gone. Yeah, but so now we got our subtypes, but right now they don't care what our type is. They're just always available. So we now need to make that connection between them to tell them if type equals customer, then only these subtypes should show up. So what we have to do is we go to the system designer and go to the application hub. We'll go back into our Bootcamp application because that's where our page should have been stored. Maybe we'll put them in custom 360 because I was working with accounts. I'll just make a new replacing object then. Okay. So if I go to our Bootcamp, I'm going to do data models, and I need to do a replacing object. Because I need to add, actually, subtype should be ours. Where did it go? You know what? It's not worth us spending all the time for me hunting. I'm going to go down to the bottom of the system designer and I'll give you a look at the configuration. So if I go to the admin area down here and click advanced settings, I can get the full list of everything in the database. And so I'm just going to pick all packages, and Creatio's configuration is built on packages. And I just want to see the most recent change that was made because our change should be at the top. if I sort by modified, there's accounts and there's account subtypes. So that is our object for the lookup right there, account subtypes. That's where our 4 subtypes are actually stored. And so if I click here and open the object, which this screen right here that we're at, you could get to through the application hub, provided you have where the lookup went. But it would show up under data models and it'll take you to the same place. And so by just making a lookup, Creatio has a standard template for lookups that it makes. And you can see it use base lookup as a template and just defines that it needs created on, created by, description, a name, and a modified on, modified by, and then a unique ID in the database. That's about it. And for most dropdowns, that is probably plenty. But what we can do right here under columns is add some new values. So in this case, I'm going to do a lookup to make 2 types, so the account types, so that we can tell our subtypes what they are related to. So I'm going to add a new column of type lookup, and I'm going to call this one type, same thing as it was with the account page. This is my reference to the user and not the actual object that I'm talking to. So I can give it a little bit shorter of a name, because if I'm editing account subtypes, and this is just a judgment call really that you make, that it's within reason, I feel like, for the user to recognize that it should be account type. But when I look at the lookup source, like which lookup are we actually referencing, that'll be account type. I'm going to leave it as a list view. And I think that's all I should need. I don't need a default value for it. Yeah, that should be good. And then the other thing I want to add while we're here, just to give you an idea of some of the other fields that you can do, I'm going to do an other, and I'm going to do a Boolean, which will be an active flag. So I can do, maybe we have some subtypes that as they go on, we won't want to use them anymore, but there'll be records in the system because we've defined them that will still want to, like, they still need to exist. We don't want older records that because we merged down their type or we deleted their subtype, that the field's just blank or cause a database reference problem. We just want to filter out the old subtypes for future use. So I'll put an active flag, and I'm going to build a business rule to be able to control only the active ones appear. And then the one last thing, because we're here and because it's one of the new freedom things that may have caught your eye, and I want to show you how to set it up. This color here, you can see that's blank. I'm going to add another column that is color. And this one's just a little fancier. You don't have to do it with this, but I just think it's neat, and we're here anyway, so I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm going to make a new color field that then, if I go back up here to the main lookup attributes and down under object settings and click color, I'm going to save that. And because we're working with an object, I have to publish the changes, which will take a couple minutes. Creatio make sure everything's in order. Just while this is loading, to point out, oh well, that was a lot faster than I thought it was going to be. But down here, there's business rules. These are the object level business rules. So you could define an object business rule here, and then just one of those tricks to be aware of. Displayed value, this option here, where like color will help us control the lookups color. Display value is actually when you are on a record, for example, say accounts. A lookup can have a bunch of different attributes behind it. Any object in the system can, like stages, dates, descriptions, you name it, it can have it. But when you're in that drop down on the lookup, you only see one value. You only see what the subtype's called, or you only see what the type's called, or if you're referencing a case, you only see one value of a case. The way Creatio determines what that is, that's the display value. So I'm not going to mess with it now, but you can, if desired, replace the display value with a new field that you would like to have, like maybe like concatenations together to do like a case number and a case name. For like case 0013 my Wi-Fi, just like maybe it'll make display more info to the user. That's what that is there. But so we've got our object published. I'm going to go back first to the lookups. Studio lookups. I'm going to go back into account subtypes, and you'll see because we added some values, the columns have changed. So I'm going to reorder my columns. Do name, type. I'll put my color in, and I'll put active flag, which I usually will rename on here with the question mark just to make it user friendly, but I just call it flag on the database because it stands out a little better as a Boolean. And then if I wanted to have a description, I'll put that in. That'll just make sense to have there. And then I'll save for all users. And so now on my subtypes, I can actually say, oh, well, example C, you're supposed to go under competitor. Example B, you should be under supplier, as should A. And then maybe example D goes under partner. But example A is actually an older value, so I'm going to put it as inactive. Actually, I'll just leave them all active for now. We'll do the filters, and I'll show you the changes. And then my colors, I need a hexadecimal value. So I'm just going to snatch one on my other screen real quick. Let's say so they should look like something like that. If I save those now, just by clicking out of the row, I'm going to go back to accounts now. And we can start to see our changes take effect. If I go, let me just add a subtype here on this list view. Pull it over here because we want to reference it. And you can see the one lookup I gave a color now has a color. So that's one thing you can do with the lookups. And then now if I go back into my account form page where we were doing that editing, bring this over here. So we've got our editor, and I'm going to do the business rules. And now we have to attach our business rules to actually do the filtering, because as of right now, if I open an account, the type still doesn't mean anything to the subtypes. So let's add an object level business rule because we want to do a filter. And I want to filter subtype by, and I know that we made that connection to type, so I'm going to connect it. And then Creatio is going to recognize that we established subtype has a field for type, which is equal to the account type. Yeah, then I can have some rules for clear subtype if field type is modified. That's just a user decision that you can make. But if I save it like this, the customer will filter for a given subtype. And if you change customer, that means your filter is going to change, so you can clear it if so desired. And then also same thing to toggle on and off, that if the user for some reason goes to pick the subtype first, and you can realize, oh, well, that subtype goes with the type, let me just autofill it for you. I usually will leave them on, but just so you're aware, you can toggle those now. And shouldn't need a condition, but I can just, if it made me feel more like that it's going to work, I can just do if subtype is filled in. Filter subtype. And I'll save it. Here she'll make me wait. Fresh. We should see that our subtypes are now going to get properly filtered by type. Oh, I overdid it. A good example on testing your code. I shouldn't have put that if there, because it's not going to filter because subtype wasn't filled in. This is why it's good to configure when you've had your morning coffee. I apparently need another cup. I'm going to save it again. Refresh the page to get current changes. And now customer is filtering the lookup. So if I change it to partner, we should get, I think it was, it's probably better. Let me clear the lookup. Huh. There's subtype, high type, type. That should be it. Didn't blank out our subtype values, did it? It shouldn't. Check them. No, that's good. I'm not sure why that's not working. We just did a really simple if to see if it is looking for an if. Like the account should have an ID, and that should be true regardless. So let's just see if that makes a difference. Do some troubleshooting and see why that is not working. That's odd. All right, refresh the page. And page fails out on me. Let me see if this page is being weird. That all looks right. That's just saying there's no data whatsoever, which that's not right, even when type's cleared. Right, so type is enabled is on the object. You know what, maybe try, let me look at the configuration. Try to diagnose this problem. I'm gonna go to my account object. There's a business rule showing up, so that looks right. It looks like it's saved, okay. Account, do the data object, filter subtype, that looks right. Let me disable that rule. And I'm going to try this on the object here. So I'm going to turn this off. And I'm going to try applying well, actually, let me just turn it off first. And then we'll see if our subtypes come back, just to make sure that that is the rules having the problem first. Okay, that published. And refresh this page and we'll see if our subtypes come back. So then we can at least know that the rule is doing its job too well. So there's our subtypes. Okay, so that is working too well. I might have to figure out why this object rule is being weird. So that is disabled now. Let me just try to see if I do a static filter on subtype. I can try filtering based on our active flag. So I want the subtypes where our active flag is true. I'll publish that. Oh, I didn't give it a name. Filter active subtypes. I don't want to publish and compile, I just want to publish. Save. Should now be able to save correctly since I gave it a name. And then I think if this works, then I'll try publishing with the subtype rule filter on from the object, see if maybe just the page wizard's not publishing it all the way. Let's just see. And right now our subtypes are all active, so we shouldn't see a difference on this load. But I just want to see the page come up again, and then I will adjust our lookup. So that looks good. That's what I expect. If I go back to the lookup now. Subtypes. I'm going to turn off example B and example D. Now, if I refresh our account page again, get up-to-date data. Should only see 2 in this dropdown. Apparently I picked the trial with the one bugged out account page. Okay, so that business rule is applying. I am seeing the ones that are only checked to be active. Now, if I go back again to our configuration screen, refresh these. And look at our business rules for the filter type by subtype. I'm going to turn this on and I'm going to publish at the object level, not the page level. One more time. Hopefully the page will not bail out so we can wrap. I'm sure this probably works normally on every other page. I just picked the one trial that was provisioned incorrectly with accounts and decided to put a business rule on the page. And you see, and it's filtering down to nothing again. What do we have on active business rules? Competitor supply, it should be competitor or supplier. A supplier should have values in it. Going back to configuration again, I'm going to try something to refresh and use one of the tools for update DB structure where it is needed to see if maybe there's a update that needs to be kicked back into place. That finished. I'm going to go back to my page again, see if this works. not, I might go and try another page just to see if it's, yeah. Aha, there we go. So suppliers filtering just example A. So it looks like we just needed to do a update DB structure. And now our filter is working. So what was the other one? Competitor. My example there, and supplier. Looks like that's not changing. The supplier should be getting example A, competitor should be getting example C. It's closer. There we go. Okay, so apparently it wanted me to refresh the page, which that's a little annoying, but the filter is working. And I don't think I could have figured, picked the better way to show some of the kind of limitations of the new designer at the moment. But there we go. We got an active filter working with a static filter, and then a dynamic type and subtype filter. Okay. I think that's what I wanted to go over. Is any questions on any of that? I'm sorry that I apparently picked the most bug section in my fluky trial to show this on, but no questions?
Not
Yeah.
for me, Joe.
All right, then.
I do
we
have
can-
one question.
Yeah.
Yeah, why wasn't the if statement necessary for the last business rule you were doing for the subtypes?
For the type subtype filter,
Yeah.
is because I wanted it to apply regardless. I didn't want a condition for like if types filled in, or any kind of if would apply an exception where it might not filter the rules, and I just wanted to always filter type by subtype. I didn't care about anything else, just filter type by subtype. No exceptions.
All right, noted. Thank you.
All right. I think we can wrap it up there. Thank you everybody for attending. I apologize again for my instance trying to mess with me during our session. But that is business rules and lookups. And tomorrow we'll be looking at the different editions of Creatio and the pricing models, which may not be as immediately interesting for people that are working more on configuring. But if you're going for the exam, with Creatio, the certification, they will ask you different editions and come up in several places as to like kinds of licenses, and there's a couple free response questions that usually what they're looking for is something along the lines of talking your way through, asking some questions to determine what edition of Creatio a potential customer needs. So in terms of pursuing the Creatio analyst certification, it is worth going over. All right. I'll talk to everybody tomorrow.
Thanks, Kevin.
Have a good one.